Hey guys, tonight we're trading Wi-Fi passwords for moonlit cobblestones and the kind of silence that sticks to your bones. You're perched atop a time-worn Tuscan wall, those stones beneath your boots, smoothed by 7 centuries of guards, pacing the same paranoid circles. Let's be real, you'd last 5 minutes in the 1300s before tripping over your own sword or accidentally declaring war on Pisa. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your hometown's local time. Nothing like hearing it's 3 a.m. in Buenos Aires while we're knee-deep in Italian ghosts. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your palms graze the parapet, frost-cold grit sticking to skin. The valley below reeks of rosemary crushed under phantom boots, and wood smoke from some farmhouse you'll never find by daylight. Historians still argue whether these walls were built to keep out invaders or just to give Florentine tax collectors a cardio workout. Either way, bless those medieval masons for their dedication to straight-ish lines. A breeze snakes through your jacket, carrying whispers of the olive oil lamps Roman guards once clipped to their belts. True story, archaeologists found charred wicks in the next town over, still smelling like rancid pumice. You crick your neck skyward, there's the Plough constellation. Or is it Ursa Major? Doesn't matter, it's the same sloppy star group, someone's tipsy ancestor, named after a kitchen utensil. The stones hum underfoot, centuries of footfalls baked into quartzite. Your boot nudges a loose cobble for half a heartbeat. You're braced for a scolding from some long-dead overseer. Instead, a blackbird erupts from the brambles below, wings clapping like a lazy golf clap. Northward, the wall narrows to a goat path. You sidestep a crumbling section. No OSHA here. Just trust the ghost of Giovanni the Mason. Your thigh brushes wild fennel gone to seed, its licorice stink sharp enough to cut through the night's gloom. 12 steps later, your toe stubs against a moss-furred groove. Soldiers once sharpened blades, here the V-shaped notch holding whetstones steady as they prepped for battles, now footnotes in library basements. A bat skims your hair, its sonar pinging off your skull like a misplaced Uber driver. You freeze. The wall doesn't care, it's hosted worse. Plague survivors burning infected sheets. Drunk Swiss mercenaries singing off-key hymns. That one Medici cousin who tried painting a mural and gave up after 3 blobby sheep. Southward now, your shadow stretches toward the village, warped by the moon's shallow angle. Ever notice how Renaissance artists never painted how weird people look in moonlight? All jawline, no cheeks, like a walking Toblerone wrapper. You're debating this profound insight when an owl hoots. Not the cozy, who cooks for you kind. This is a dying hairball sound. Locals swore these owls carried messages from the damned. Quirky tidbit. A 16th century nun's diary claims they nested in the ribcages of hanged thieves. You pick up the pace, Her cursive was disturbingly specific. Half a mile in, the wall spills into a forgotten lymph node of history. A circular platform just wide enough for 2 guards to stand back to back, pikes bristling at the fog. You spin slow, village lights winking like drowned stars. Somewhere down there, a Vespa backfires. The modern world's always waiting to kill the vibe. Fingers find grooves in the mortar, initials carved by bored garrison kids. M, a 1493. LS, 1620. A crude phallus everyone in academia politely calls a fertility symbol. Your phone buzzes, a robo-text about enlarging something, and you almost yeet it into the ravine. Not today, Satan. The first shiver hits, that damp cold that starts in the spleen. You zip your jacket. 3 centuries ago, guards here got a wool cloak and a daily wine ration. The wine's gone, but your tongue still tastes purple from that Nero d'Avola you shouldn't have chugged pre-stream. A church bell groans 3 a.m., sound curdling over the hills. 14 kilometers east, there's a monastery where monks still chant this hour. You picture them, hooded, grumpy, sipping espresso stolen from the abbot's private stash. The bell's final note fades, leaving only the scratch of ivy clawing at stone. You unclip a water bottle, plastic crinkling like a mic drop. 300 years back, that noise would have earned you a crossbow bolt between the shoulder blades. Modern perks, hydration without death. Swish the tepid water, tastes like backpack and poor life choices. Wind rifles through the valley, olive leaves hissing like 10,000 librarians shushing at once. The moon dips, shadows grow fangs. That lump ahead, just a boulder, probably. You thumb the dolphin flashlight on your keychain, its weak beam dies pathetically. Note to self, next sponsorship deal, freaking lanterns. 200 paces west, a marker stone juts from the wall. Latin etched by someone with chisel dyslexia. QUI, CUSTODITUR. Who guards the guardians? Classic medieval copypasta. You trace the letters rough as a cat's tongue. The real answer? Mercenaries, mostly, until their pay ran out. Your watch beeps. Heart rate 112. Blame the incline or the way the cypress grove just whispered your name. Don't look. There's nothing there. Unless, nope, just leaves, always leaves. A drip hits your neck cold, insistent. Tree sap, bat pee. The universe refusing to let you romanticize history for 5 damned minutes. You scrape it with a thumbnail, sniff, immediately regret sniffing. Yeah, let's go with sap. The wall kinks sharply, a dogleg designed to funnel attackers into a kill zone. You edge around the bend, and there it is. The first tower crumbling like a wedding cake left in the rain. Arrow slits stare sullen, unblinking. Your lungs hitch. Every horror movie bone in your body screams nope. But the tower's door gapes, splintered oak hanging by one rust-eaten hinge. Beyond it, blackness thick enough to chew. A bead of sweat trickles down your ribs despite the chill. Keyboard warriors will comment, you should have brought a GoPro. Let them. You're here, boots muddy, pulse galloping, toes hovering on the threshold, where centuries collapse into a single breath. The dog's bark hangs sharp in the air, glass shattering on stone. Your lamp trembles in response, its flame shrinking from the noise. Shadows surge taller as you freeze. Fence posts become sentinels, with spears aimed at your throat. You whisper a curse. Even saints would pardon the taste of iron in your mouth from biting down too hard. Oil lamps, like this one, lit Tuscan walls for 600 years. Nobody mentions how they turned night watchmen into shadow puppeteers, or how the breeze always waits for dramatic moments to gust. You angle the light downward, a feeble attempt to shrink your looming silhouette. The dog barks again, a single, hollow report from the olive groves below. Historians still argue whether night sentries used light codes or just yelled a lot. Something crunches underfoot, a walnut shell. Too dark to tell, your boot grinds it into the dust of 100 patrols past. The lamp reveals grooves worn into the stone centuries of guards tracing the same path. Maybe boredom carves deeper than time. A shadow slips across the path ahead, too fast for the flame to catch. You inhale rosemary and your own nervous sweat. 3 slow breaths, the manual said, that calms idiots. Your grip tightens on the lamp. Fence post shadows sway. No, the posts are swaying. Realization arrives late. It's not the wood moving, but the old iron brackets rusting apart. The night unspools quiet again. A cat's tail twitch in a 3rd-story window. Fog fingering the bell tower's cracks. Then uneven footsteps, not yours. They pause when you pause, mimic your rhythm when you walk. You're either haunted or hallucinating. The light swings toward the sound. Nothing but a coiled rope someone left rotting against the parapet. Did 16th century guards stash wine here? The fringe guidebook swears Erasmus of Formia's missing finger bone lies under these stones. You kick a pebble. It skitters further than expected. Maybe the dark's stretching distances. Maybe you're tired. A shutter bangs open somewhere. You count 11 heartbeats before it slams shut. The breeze carries vinegar and burnt sugar. Someone's midnight kitchen disaster. Your lamp gutters, then steadies. Minutes bleed together. Moths tattoo themselves against the glass, drawn to the flame's dumb courage. Below, a shape slips between vineyards. Human, goat, poacher. Your throat tightens until it vanishes behind a dry stone wall. The protocol scroll mentioned wolves, but neglected to specify whether they care about lamp smoke. One fence post creaks, a moan that outlasts your resolve. You press your back to the cold stone, remembering the baker's daughter swore these walls, whispered during autumn moons. The dog stays silent now, an accomplice to whatever breathes just beyond your circle of light. Your pinky brushes something wet, ivy sap or torch residue. Wiping it on your cloak feels like a future problem. The lamp's handle has etched its pattern into your palm, temporary tattoos for temporary sentries. Overhead, a star detaches and plummets. You make a wish out of habit, then doubt whether wishes work if you're paid to stay awake through them. The abbey's bell tolls once, a sound so thick it sits on your tongue. Footsteps again, but softer, urgent, parallel to the wall now, racing the wind. Your pulse becomes a war drum as you lean over the edged lamp, extended like a dare. Below, a flash of mangy fur and yellow eyes. The feral dog from the bark earlier, fleeing something only it can sense. The shadows shrink as your flame burns lower. Soon, the oil's whisper grows louder than your boots on stone. You unwrap a honeyed fig from your pocket, the night watchman's ancestral bribe against existential dread. Silence pools around you patient, until a rusted weather vane screams itself awake. North, east, north again. You track it spinning, half expecting it to point toward buried treasure or borrowed time. The fig's sweetness turns cloying. Another tactical error in this endless shift. By the time you spot the baker's first candle flickering across the valley, you've memorized every crack in your section of wall. 3 stray cats now trail your route, their eyes catching the lamplight like coins in a wishing well. You don't turn around, but their purrs vibrate through the stones, a sound so warm it nearly erases the night's chill. Nearly, dampness seeps through your boots, dew or ancient puddles. Neither, the cobbler overpromised. You picture tomorrow's blister, a badge of honor for surviving what history books reduce to routine patrols. The horizon pales, a thief easing open dawn's window. Shadows retreat fence posts, reduced to mere wood once more. Your lamp sputters, then dies its final flare, branding the image of your hand, pale and unnecessary against the growing light. The lamp's death leaves you squinting, dawn prying night's fingers from the valley. Your boots crunch toward that crooked silhouette, the watchtower leaning like a drunkard mid-toast. Its limestone blocks were hauled up Monte Amiata by mules in 1303, though current erosion patterns suggest some very motivated donkeys. The open door gapes, splintered wood showing generations of shoulder shoves. Air hisses through arrow slits. Or is that your imagination tuning itself to catastrophe? Historians still argue whether these towers stored grain, prisoners, or just the existential dread of bored garrison troops. Local legend claims the builder embedded a horse skull in the foundation, an Etruscan trick to mute earthquake whispers. You half believe it until your heel kicks something hollow sounding. Probably just a rat's condo with great valley views. Moss crawls up the threshold, nature's doormat for unwanted guests. The first stair groans like a widower. You freeze. Arm hairs, senses staking. 3 more steps. 4, your nape prickles, where a crossbow bolt might nested in 15th century disagreements. Someone scratched Lorenzo, stinks of elderberries, near the arrow loop. Proof graffiti outlasts empires. The carving's depth suggests passionate commitment to the review. At the 3rd landing, crumbling plaster reveals brickwork patterns banned by the Medici in 1470. Too symmetrical, too pagan, or maybe just cheaper. You'll never know. Wind sneaks through a murder hole, carrying the scent of the cooper's yard below. Oak staves, iron hoops, and something fungal festering in the rain barrel. The trapdoor resists, then yields with a splintering screech. Sunlight blinds you, the rooftop swimming into focus, like wine spreading on linen. Pigeon droppings fossilize a rusted brazier. The original owner clearly prized ambience over pneumonia prevention. Wind turbines blink on distant hills, red lights pulsing like modern watchfires. The tower shudders centuries of wind versus poor masonry in a stalemate. Below, the valley stretches quilt-like, each vineyard row stitched with dewy precision. That open door now yawns 3 flights down, too far to sprint if ghosts believe in stairs. You press a palm to the cold Merlin, this stone touched by how many forgotten hands. Dawn sharpens the world, turning mystery into architecture. And back again, with each cloud that crosses the sun. The wind's fingers slip through arrow slits, mocking your shallow breaths with phantom whispers. You press against cold stone where brigandine armor once gouged grooves. 14th century sentries grinding frustration into limestone during endless patrols. Your thumbnail finds a fresh nick in the rock, proof that routine wears harder than catastrophe. Moss cushions your palm, velvet over what scholars call soldiers' graffiti. Local herbalists once swore this growth cured warts, if harvested under a waning moon. You try scraping some off. It clings like old regrets. A gust funnels through the murder hole, sputtering into something that almost sounds like Avanti. Historians still argue whether these walls hosted professional garrisons or farmers handed pikes with their tax notices. The wind doesn't care. It reenacts lost arguments in Dolby Atmos. Damani, it hisses, a procrastinator's battle cry. Your boot dislodges a pebble. It plummets 3 stories before cracking the silence. You wait for shouted curses. Nothing comes, but pigeons debating your intrusion in coos. The east-facing slits glow amber now, dawn buttering the valley in soft denial of last night's ghosts. Fingers trace mortar lines, crumbling recipes of sand, ash, and pride. Someone mixed egg yolks into this batch. You're sure of it. Renaissance contractors loved their edible infrastructure. A spider strums its web between merlins, arpeggios drowned by the breeze's white noise. The scent hits sudden, aged urine and rosemary. Not an antique cologne, just sheep invading the lower bastion. Their bells clank like poorly rehearsed church choirs. You almost prefer the wind's imaginary dialogues. A shadow darts across the parapet. Your pulse spikes until it resolves into a stink bug, kamikaze diving into oblivion. Nature's comic relief. You lean into an embrasure, noting how arrow slits align perfectly with the old Barberini olive groves. Defensive strategy or passive-aggressive landscaping. Another mystery for Tuesday seminar rooms. Sunlight warms your neck, a sensation 500 years of guards cursed as the shift dragged on. You squint at blurred figures in the village below, a monk, a laundress, maybe a tax collector. All equally tiny, all equally brief. The tower thrums, a deep C-sharp from wind, vibrating the northeast corner. Architects called it structural vulnerability. Nightwatch logs blamed it on giants snoring under the hills. You hum a long Chinese letter, turning your ribs into tuning forks. When the breeze stills, silence feels thicker, like cream separating from milk. Your knife catches light as you add a fresh scratch to the wall, one microscopic rebellion against erasure. Future grad students will overthink this. You smirk, stepping back into the stairwell's throat. Stone absorbs your body heat faster than history absorbs names. 3 centuries from now, they'll debate your footsteps, mistaking them for Charlemagne's. The wind starts its chorus anew, a sighing refrain of maybe, maybe not. Wings snap overhead, a papery flutter that prickles the hairs on your neck. You freeze too late. The barn owl's talons graze your shoulder as it banks hard, a white blur, dissolving into the tower's shadow. Its screech carves the air, once, twice, 3 times raw enough to score bone. 7 cries total, you count them like rosary beads. Local lore claims a 7-hoot owl warns of brigands, or possibly bad harvests. Records from Brescia mention owls nesting in watchtowers during the Black Death, feathered undertakers growing fat on plague rats. You wonder if this one's a descendant, or just really into dramatic entrances. Something crunches underfoot, a pellet gray fur, and tiny bones glued with owl spit. Dinner mint. You mutter, kicking it into the void. Archaeologists once found 300 of these in a single pisson dovecote, medieval pest control with benefits. The stillness returns thick as a down blanket. Your lamp beam finds the owl's vacated perch, a ledge crusted with droppings, and one twisted iron nail. Experts think these towers stored emergency black powder. Amateur ghost hunters insist the nails held restraining chains for night terrors. You pocket the rusted metal, future cocktail party evidence for either camp. Moonlight slips through a roof gap, spotlighting stone grooves beneath your boots. Not erosion, deliberate carvings too fresh for Renaissance stonemasons. A lopsided heart, a poorly drawn goat. Historians still argue whether centuries doodled out of boredom or left coded messages. The owl's shadow sweeps past again, nature's eraser smudging your theories. Your elbow brushes the wall, cold seeps through wool. This section faced the worst of the siege of Montalcino. Or so the plaque downstairs claims. The stones smell different here, charcoal and something sweet. Maybe decaying wedding garlands tossed by defiant villagers. Maybe a guard's hidden grappa stash gone vinegary. A feather drifts down, primaries edged in gold where light leaks through. Barn owls regurgitate these for mates, or enemies, or confused tourists. You twirl it, the veins catching a draft like a sail. Message received. You tell the darkness. half expecting a feathered middle finger in response. The Count's men used to burn owl nests during famine winters, superstition trumping practicality. Their grain stores promptly got overrun by mice. Karma's a rodent with sharp teeth. You lean over the parapet, watching the feathers spiral toward vineyards that survived dukes, droughts, and disco. Silence pools in your ears. No wind, no wings. Just the tinnitus hum of overstimulated nerves. You check your timepiece. 7 minutes since the first screech. Some medievalist in Milan swears 7 was a sacred number here. Watch rotations. Well, rituals, wives. The owl's gone silent. The night's listening now, testing what you'll say next. Moss grinds under your heel, a green stain blooming on leather. Better than pigeon shit, you tell the empty tower, and immediately regret tempting fate. Your boot scrapes gravel, something winks back. Not quartz, curved terracotta edges poking through dirt like a buried smirk. Kneeling, you unearth the shard with thumb and forefinger. Moonlight dances across its surface. Once blood red, glazed now salmon pink, from 8 centuries of Italian winters. The curve fits your palm, a bowl fragment from someone's wedding feast or chamber pot. Archaeologists found 3 tons of these under Siena's streets, mostly Norman-era takeout containers. 1 shard bore a goat's head stamp, and trace grape DNA from a wine critics called peppery, with notes of betrayal. Dried earth crumbles off the edges. A blackened stain flowers across the pattern. Not sauce, actual sanguis Christi residue. Doubtful. More likely, some housewife's overambitious pepper stew. Historians still argue whether broken dishes were ritual offerings or just proof Renaissance dishwashers deserved hazard pay. You rub the stain. Your fingertip comes away smelling of iron and time. The Medici taxed these wares by the crate, luxury defined by what survived the ox cart ride uphill. That chip on the rim could have bankrupted a lesser merchant, or spared him an assassin's poison via leaky tableware. Another glint a yard ahead, this one jagged as a lie. The pieces form no pattern, just a mosaic of whoops frozen in clay. Night shifts your shadow. Suddenly, they align into a dolphin, or maybe a very lumpy sausage. Blunt edge tests your calluses, still sharp enough to slice prosciutto. Original Tuscan pizza cutter, you tell a disinterested moth. In 09, a farmer near Montalcino found a whole jug under his vines, still corked, the liquid inside evaporated centuries ago. But the scent made his spaniel howl at fig trees for a week. The backside feels wrong, too smooth. You flip it, and there's the potter's thumbprint, preserved mid-slip. His panic becomes your pulse. How many denarii did that mistake cost him? A week's wages, a beating. Wind riffles your collar, you glance up. The wall here overlooks what was once a leatherworker's courtyard. Tanners needed vats, potters needed customers. Coincidence or urban planning? Your breath fogs the shard for a heartbeat. The dolphin sausage glows like wet blood. Pocketing it feels like theft or archaeology. Depends who you ask after the third Negroni. Cities rise on layers of broken things, each shard a verdict on what's worth preserving. This one's cool against your thigh, a souvenir that'll sit on a bookshelf until you invent a good story for it. Down in the valley, a truck backfires, modernity intruding with diesel fumes. You press the shard's edge to your wrist, testing if the past still bites. It doesn't. Or maybe you're just worse at bleeding than the dead. Your wristwatch ticks twice before the valley answers, 3 hollow booms shivering through fog. The bell tower's a blurred thumbprint in the distance, but its voice arrives crystal clear. You count the vibrations in your molars. This one's tuned to F flat, same as London's Big Ben. Fog swallows the vineyards whole. Only the nearest vines clutch their grapes like sleepwalkers' fists. Monks first rang these bells to corral medieval drunkards into bed. The wine cellars bribed sacristans for after-hours enlightenment well into the 1500s. The damp air thickens each note now. They sound less like timekeeping and more like a bored god humming in his sleep. Your boot knocks a pebble over the parapet. 8 seconds pass, no splash from the unseen moat below. Ever notice how night multiplies gravity? That stone probably hit dirt ages ago, but part of you's still falling with it. The third chime's echo gets tangled in cypress trees. Locals swear each Tuscan bell has a secret note, one that only widows and newborns hear. In '83, a musicologist recorded the same F-flat here, but his tape reel later hissed, "Look up, Carlo," in 3 dead dialects. The lab fired him for lyrical contamination. Your neck prickles anyway. Clouds skate across the moon's blind eye. That crack in the bell, blame Napoleon's troops, or the time a friar tried silencing lockdown protests with a sledgehammer. Historians still argue whether midnight tolls warned of assassins or just reminded bakers to check their ovens. A bat zips past, wingbeats syncopating with the fading bronze. You mimic its flight path with your lamp until the beam catches something worse than darkness. The fog parts just enough to reveal a power line. Mundanity, the true horror. 3 a.m.'s the hour when stone sweats. You press your palm to the battlement, cool at first, then a creeping damp that might be dew or centuries of guard sweat. The Medici poisoned a rival right here in 1471, but forgotten the name plaque he funded 2 years prior. The bell's final tremor lodges in your ribs. Somewhere down there, a vineyard cat yowls back in B-flat. Perfect 5th interval. Even strays here have better pitch than your ex's garage band. Lightning needle stabs the horizon silent because God's a cinematographer tonight. Count the seconds. 1, 2, 3. Thunder growls like an empty stomach. The tower's probably grounded. Probably. You shift away from the rail anyway, metal belt buckle, humming with borrowed charge. 15 miles northeast. German tourists snap long exposure photos. Their flashes pop like disposable lighters at a stadium ballad. You raise an imaginary wineglass to their futility, then realize you're mirroring the vineyard scarecrow's stance. A drop hits your collar, rain or pigeon. The Beltor's cross blinks red through mist. FAA regulations grafted onto a 12th century steeple salvation by committee. Your map claims this fog's localized humidity. Every breath argues otherwise. Wind rifles through your pockets. The pottery shard chills your thigh. 800 years ago, someone dropped this during a bell-induced panic. Or yawn. History's romantic like that, forgetting most epics begin with bad posture or needing a piss. The third chime's ghost lingers, a bronze heartbeat thudding in the cathedral's crawlspace. You half expect a reply from Florence, but all that comes is the wet smack of grapes surrendering to gravity. One overripe bunch at a time. The gate creaks like a man waking mid-snore, rust flaking onto your sleeve in orange snow. Napoleon's retreating troops stripped its iron fittings in 1799, but forgot the hinge pins cast from Spanish cannons. Your boot scuffs, the threshold groove worn smooth by 7 centuries of merchants, deserters, and drunkards taking the back exit home. Moonlight transforms olive leaves into coin-sized mirrors. You half expect them to jingle. In 28, workers digging a well here found a horse skeleton in full armor facing away from town. Its bridle bells were stuffed with rosemary, local custom for binding ghosts to buried regrets. The postern door sticks at 30 degrees. It's heavier than it looks. Medieval carpenters soaked oak in seawater until shipworms bored weight-saving tunnels. A rotten plank cracks under your palm. The sour tang of fermented wood pulp floods your nose. Beyond the wall, 3 terraces slope into fog. Somewhere down, there's the old salt road to Siena, buried when merchants realized it was cheaper to bribe gatekeepers than repair cobblestones. Historians still argue whether this gate's asymmetrical arch was built to confuse invaders or to frame the sunrise for a lovelorn stonemason. A rusted chain dangles from the mechanism, severed clean, but not by tools. You rub the metal between thumb and forefinger. Cold bleeds through your glove. Folklore claims moonlight can anneal iron. The math disagrees. But physics never comforted anyone staring into a Tuscan abyss. Your lamp beam skitters across the nearest olive grove. Trunks twist into numerals. 11, 9, 4, prime numbers, plucked from a drunk mathematician's notebook. Maybe that ancient horse counted them too, its riders whispering Fibonacci sequences into the dark. Wind punches through the opening, sudden and vinegar sharp. It carries a whiff of diesel from the valley road, then swallows itself. One winter in the 50s, farmers swore this gate breathed steam, 3 long sighs that melted frost into perfect hexagons. The parish priest blamed erratic aquifer levels. The farmers blamed the horse. You lean out just enough to feel the drop in your knees. Centuries ago, guards tethered themselves here with rope belts. Safety's a modern invention. Your phone buzzes, a weather alert about unsettled atmospheric conditions, as opposed to the rock-solid vibes of a cursed gateway. The fog below writhes, then parts like theater curtains. For 3 heartbeats, you see them, olive rows aligned too straight for nature. An 8th century irrigation grid, a failed Roman survey. The mist slams shut before your brain picks a lane. A hinge bolt pops loose. It bounces once before vanishing into darkness. You track its descent through memory alone, imagining it denting a monk's skull in 1204, or clanging into a smuggler's copper pot last Tuesday. Coordinates blur here. Every step connects to a dozen timelines. The gate's shadow stretches unnaturally long, moon parallax, or sleep deprivation. You've read about stone fatigue in medieval walls, but not a single engineering manual mentions the way arches yawn after midnight. When you finally step back, the door groans shut, a sound felt in the molars rather than heard. Some barriers exist to remind us how small our hands are. Dawn's first blush seeps into the valley. The olives revert to leaves. The salt road dissolves into mist, and the gate becomes just a door again, for now. Moonlight bleaches the path ahead. Your shadow clones itself across 3 different centuries. The polearm's blunted blade shivers. In your grip, Renaissance tour guides call it decorative. Tell that to the condottieri, who carved their initials on the haft during the Pazzi conspiracy. A bat clips your ear, nature's version of a drive-by. Every time clump twitches like a clockwork mouse, you freeze mid-step. 93 seconds pass before realizing it's just the breeze conducting shadow puppet wars. Nightwatch logs from 1542 mention sentries firing crossbows at their own cloaks. Dancing with phantoms became a popular tavern punchline. The parapet's merlins crouch like chess rooks. Between them, movement. A shape darting left, right. The wall's southern stretch was rebuilt after an earthquake in 1712. Workers mixed mortar with goat's blood for luck. Smart move. It's held up better than modern concrete. Your knuckles whiten around the polearm. That's €43, worth of authentic replica regret. Something scrapes stone behind you, a sound like teeth on bone. Whirling, you catch moonlight glinting off. A snail's spiral shell. It glides over carvings left by board guards. Marcello Hart, suit Lucia etched beside a crude doodle of the plague doctor. Historians still argue whether these grooves served as windbreaks for archers, or just the medieval equivalent of bathroom stall graffiti. A cloud smothers the moon, darkness so thick you taste it. Your boot finds a depression in the walkway, a firing step for arquebusiers. 3 breaths. 10. When light returns, your footprint fills with rainwater from a storm that ended 6 hours ago. The air smells of wet gunpowder, or maybe that's the ghost of a watchman's last cigar. North corner's worst. Ivy there moves wrong leaves folding upward like hands in surrender. During the 1944 retreat, partisans hid wireless kits in these walls. Their Morse code taps still get mistaken for woodpeckers. You count 7 unnatural rustles before spotting the feral cat. It glares tail flicking in Morse, even you can translate. You don't belong. Your shoulder brushes a stone colder than the rest, the weeping block locals avoid after dusk. Nightwatch diaries describe frost forming here in August, always in the shape of a gargoyle's open mouth. Scientists blame limestone's thermal properties. You blame whichever duke thought feeding prisoners to eels made good foreign policy. The polearm snags on a spur of iron, left when workers pried off a Medici coat of arms in 1737. Below, the hedges shiver in perfect unison, a wave traveling west to east. Wind doesn't work that way. Neither do animals. You press against the wall. Fun fact, mercenaries once urinated off this exact spot onto French siege engineers. Humor, history's original defense mechanism. Dawn's still hours off the darkest watch, when clouds mimic landforms and moles sound like archers. You're almost certain that shape by the well isn't new, almost. The polearm's butt cap taps an irregular rhythm against stone, your personal acoustic perimeter. In 1991, a grad student claimed these walls emit infrasound below 20 Hz, inducing passive dread. His advisor called it indigestion from bad salumi. Movement glitches at the edge of vision, a flicker too quick for the eye to follow. 5 generations of lamplighters insisted shadow play here isn't cast but beckoned. You're pretty sure that's just sleep deprivation talking. Pretty sure. When the chapel bell finally clangs 4 a.m., it startles you into dropping the polearm. The crash wakes 17 sparrows and something else that scrambles through the brambles laughing. You wipe pollen from your sleeve, or is it ash from a banquet that burned centuries ago? The laughter rises again, a woman's giggle frayed at the edges like old velvet. Down in the piazza, shadows pool where trestle tables once groaned under peacock roasts and marzipan towers. Historians still argue whether Renaissance plumbing could have carried sound this far, or if stone remembers joy better than pain. Your boot scuffs a groove worn smooth by barrel rollers, those indentations merchants called wine snakes in tax ledgers. A drunk count flooded this square with claret during the 1498 harvest festival. Villagers reportedly slipped in the sticky runoff for weeks. The brook beneath the bridge gurgles a countermelody. You can't tell if it's mocking or harmonizing. A warped shutter claps. 3 notes echo C, G, E, matching a troubadour tune forbidden after the Inquisition's 1523 visitation. Some claim the stones absorbed musicians' riffs like a drunkard's sponge. Your lantern light shivers across wet cobbles, or are those spilled wine dregs from a duke's tantrum? Fragments of song snag your ear, e la luna si ni infiscia, though the dialect died with the Black Death's last survivors. A local baker insists the bridge hums when yeast proofs in his pridon. Ovens, correlation, or acoustic witchcraft. You press a palm to the parapet, warm as bread left too long in its peel. Something plops into the water below. Not a fish, not a stone. 16th century servants dumped spoiled hippocras. Here, the bridge's arch still reeks of cinnamon and regret during summer droughts. Your shadow stretches across 5 window bays, one for each cardinal poisoned at that fateful feast. The brook's chuckle deepens. You squint. Are those olive pits swirling in the current, or mice skulls from a plague pit? Nightwatch records mention a cook who substituted hedgehog for suckling pig. His ghost supposedly haunts the western latrine. The laughter peaks, then fractures into liquid syllables: vino, riso, tradimento. A nightjar's cry overlays the din. Or is that a wine steward's whistle summoning cupbearers? The 1623 town archive describes crystal goblets shattering during thunderstorms, angry ghosts of sober men. You trace a graffiti recipe for honeysuckle mead. Its measurements in finger widths, not grams. Wind funnels through the piazza, carrying a whiff of burnt sugar and something muskier. 2 centuries back, a perfumer turned smuggler used this route. His lavender oil masks still surface in attics. The stones beneath your feet vibrate faintly. Scholars remain divided, whether it's cartwheels echoing through time or underground rivers digesting forgotten feast scraps. Clouds shift. Moonlight transforms the brook into a mercury ribbon, the same shade as Duchess Bianca's infamous necklace. Conspiracy nuts claim she melted it down to bribe the bridge's architect, hence its defiance of floodwaters. You kick a pebble, it arcs over the guardrail and plinks the water precisely where her gondola supposedly sank. Dawn's still hours off, but the feast's ghostly attendees are losing steam. A final hiccup echoes off the well house, a basso profundo belch fit for Medici. You pocket a twisted nail from the bridge's railing, souvenir of a night where merriment and running water share the same blurred tongue. By the time the FIRST Chinese letter creaks toward market, you've memorized the brook's peculiar score. Historians can keep their musty scrolls. Real history hums in the dark sticky, with wine lees and bad decisions. The last laugh fades as you turn homeward, almost sounding like your own. You pause where the tower's shadow licks the path home, drawn by a wavering scritch too regular for woodworm. Inside, your boot grinds onion skin parchment into mud, the crumbling remnants of duty rosters from a vigil stretched too thin. Fingers brush names cut into stone: Giovanni, Luca, Alina. Their knife strokes angle left, hallmark of right-handed men fighting a cramp. Historians still argue whether these marks tracked shift rotations or served as deathbed tallies when the Black Death choked this valley in 1348. Your thumbnail fits a groove between L and U flawlessly, same width as Venetian dagger hilts sold to guards short on wages. Someone's chiseled a crude rat inches below Alina. 1347, a 15th century. Herbalist's journal insists casks of wormwood vinegar, placed here, warded off the stink of God's wrath. The vinegar's gone, but the tower still inhales sharply when humidity climbs. Shadows warp as your lantern crosses a cluster of vertical slashes, 19 in total. Local lore claims they tally the days until a relief garrison arrived, though mold stains suggest multiple hands kept score. You spot a cockeyed M overlapping a longer name, modern graffiti, or some guardsman's board shorthand. Archivists discovered a 1351 letter from a wool merchant complaining about sentries etching grocers' codes into every flat surface. A drip lands on your collar cold as cathedral vaults. You glance up at rafters where watchmen once strung garlic braids and fox carcasses. The wood's pitted with rust-colored splotches, bloodstains, or 18th century roof leaks. Carpenters, during the 1602 restoration, refused to replace a beam marked El Ira di Dio, swore it creaked warnings before storms. Moonlight bleeds through an arrow slit, spotlighting numbers. XIII carved beneath XIV. 2 different hands, 2 different reckonings. A friar's 1493 chronicle blames calendar confusion during quarantine years. But pension records show guards received extra wine rations for updating plague counts. Your breath fogs over the lower numeral 14 dead or 14 spared. The stone stays mute. Beneath the names, something gleams, a rusted nail bent into a hook. You've seen these in museum cases, labeled medieval ear cleaners. Farriers swore a curved iron above a door snatched evil spirits by their lobes. When you scrape it along the wall, the sound mirrors a child's wail captured in 1930s ghost recordings. 3 deeper gouges mar the G in Giovanni. Historians love arguing whether these mark height measurements for conscripts or notches from blades testing edge retention. Your own knife snags, catching a sliver of quartz. The stone coughs up a blackened hazelnut shell. Could have tumbled from a guardsman's pocket during the 1383 squirrel invasion, or last week's tourist trail mix. The wind shifts, bringing wood smoke and the acid tang of fresh-cut horsetail reeds. 6 centuries back, Nightwatchmen burned those to keep their teeth clean between shifts. You rub a thumb over Luca's name until charcoal residue stains your skin. Same ritual the guards used to prove they'd completed rounds. Their duty logs mention a 1352 incident where ash fingerprints outnumbered actual patrols. Outside, a cart jostles past laden with olive crates, modern wheels singing the same squeak plane chant as their medieval counterparts. Your last glance catches moonlight hitting Alina's name. Just so, transforming the A into a tiny dagger aimed at your retreating back. By dawn, the scratches will fade to rumor again, patient as plague spores in floor cracks. You freeze mid-step. A green blink pierces the cypress grove's gloom. Not the amber sway of oil lamps. This light stutters like a fevered pulse. Cypress resin scents the air, a bitter tang medieval builders prized for repelling termites in cathedral rafters. Your Boothiel grinds pine cones into the path monks once trod barefoot to collect night-blooming hellebores. Or so a 12th century herbal claims. The light winks again, 3 quick flares, too rhythmic for fireflies. Historians still argue whether Tuscan nobles used coded lantern signals during the 1375 grain riots. But the cypresses have longer memories. You count 11 heartbeats before it flashes once more. 11, number of cobblestones missing from the pilgrim route to Siena. Coincidence or clandestine math? Moonlight bleeds through branches overhead, transforming the grove into a cage of bone-white shafts. Your hand brushes a trunk and comes away sticky. Torch resin. Farmers still tap these trees for turpentine, using iron spiles forged like 14th century arrowheads. A distant click, stone on stone, and the light vanishes. For 5 breaths, you become a statue, same as the watchman who once froze here during forbidden trysts. When the glow returns, it's shifted 40 paces west. You follow, crushing moonward underfoot. Franciscans brewed this fern into holy ink for copying psalters, though a mischievous footnote in their ledger mentions mixing it with honey wine. The light hovers waist-high now. You crouch, knee popping like a musket's misfire. Up close, it's just a firefly, albeit one the size of your thumbnail. Its bioluminescence pulses chartreuse instead of gold, a genetic quirk or optical trick. Renaissance apothecaries bottling glowworms for lantern elixirs, noted green specimens fetched triple at market. This one alights on your sleeve, casting your arm's hairs into glowing filaments. Its abdomen flickers in Latin Morse, no one's deciphered yet. A twig snaps uphill, the beetle flicks off. Darkness rushes in cold as a grave robbery. Your thumbnail finds the pine tar on your palm. Still tacky, still stinging. Some claim night shift guards rubbed resin on doorframes to catch snooping lovers' fingerprints. You half expect your handprint to fluoresce now, a phantom brand for chasing fools' errands. Wind riffles the cypress canopy, an exhale that carries the grove's old nickname, Il Sospitoso, the suspicious one. Tax records show a 15th century mayor ordered 70 trees felled here to deny cover to conspirators. Workers refused. Chainsaws didn't exist yet, but rebellion did. The ground slopes downward, roots forming spiral stairs. Your boot dislodges a shard of glazed pottery. Minoan swirls marred by modern forklift treads. Archaeologists found 3 Carthaginian coins in this grove during sewer repairs. The town displayed replicas, then melted the originals for a church bell. Monsignor della Quercia called it conversion by furnace. Another green blink, 20 paces ahead near a lightning-scarred trunk. You approach sideways, sentry style, the fireflies perched on a mushroom colony, sprouting where roots knuckle upward. These fungal rings were once believed to mark where witches paid their debts. In fingernails, and second-born sons. The beetle crawls onto your index finger, its legs tickling like a signature being written. Dawn's first indigo bleeds through the trees. The grove exhales dew, a mist that erases footsteps older than the Medici. When you glance back at the mushroom ring, it's just a patch of mud, same as you'll describe to the day watch over bitter espresso. Probably a drone, they'll joke, not knowing about the pine tar still gleaming under your cuff. The stone leaves your fingers before doubt takes root, a pebble pried from the wall's mortar. Gravity claims it, but the well swallows the fall whole. 3 breaths. 4. No splash ricochets up the moss-slick shaft. Your pulse thrums in your ears, a counter-rhythm to the silence below. Medieval well diggers supposedly sang Gregorian chants to time their descent. Each hymn verse another foot deeper into the earth. Cold air licks your face, a fungal stench mixed with iron. You lean further over the parapet. Your shadow blocks the moon, revealing carved symbols in the coping stones. A knife-scratched profile of Saint Zeno, patron of drowned sailors in landlocked towns. Historians still argue whether 14th century Tuscans confused him with Neptune, or just really loved ironic tributes. Another pebble, another absence. You press your cheek to damp stone, ear tuned for subterranean whispers. 16th century court records mention a mayor's wife who accidentally dropped 73 silver spoons down this well during a single fit of kitchen rage. The ledger's margin sketch shows her wielding a frying pan like Excalibur. Your lantern gutters, the flame stretching thin as parchment. Below, something glints. A coin, fish scale, Roman emissaries, allegedly tossed gold aureus pieces into sacred wells to bribe local water nymphs. This gleam winks slower, methodical. Your throat tightens. 5 generations back, a child's diary described the well humming at midnight, a sound like bees trapped in a bishop's skull. Lichen crumbles under your grip. You inhale wood smoke from a farmhouse far below. Or is it the tang of your own adrenaline? That missing splash carves a hole in logic. Engineers harp about acoustics, about dry shafts and collapsed chambers. But your skin prickles the same way it did finding those Carthaginian coins replicas in the museum. Pretty lies over uglier truths. Wind funnels down the shaft, a bassoon groan that billows your shirt. Goosebumps rise. 14th century guards reportedly lowered prisoners here in wicker baskets. Makeshift oubliettes for drunkards and pickpockets. You trace a groove in the parapet rope marks. Or just centuries of buckets scraping mercy from the dark. The glint moves horizontally. Your brain scrambles for anchors, bioluminescent algae, bat collar tags. Then it winks out, leaving afterimages branded on your retina. A 1598 town ordnance band dumping enchantments, effluvia, or excess eels into public wells. The specificity haunts you. You fumble for your last pebble, find a brick chip instead. Its edges bite your palm. This one you kiss for luck, a habit from skipping stones at Lake Trasimeno as a kid. The drop stretches seconds into eons. No splash, no echo, no tidy ending. Dew condenses on your lashes, or maybe it's the well's breath finally reaching you. Dawn stains the eastern sky peach, exposing the truth of things. Mortar lines reemerge. Bats flutter homeward. That glint turns out to be a Coke can wedged in the shaft. 86 World Cup Commemorative Edition. Civilization always wins. But as you turn away, your sleeve catches on the coping stones. Threads snap, a sound like tiny bones breaking. You glance back just once and see it. Far below, 5 handspans above the phantom waterline, a single air bubble surfaces. Pop. Orion's belt snuffs out first, 3 stars dissolving like salt in broth. You blink, stupid reflex, as if eyelids could scrub the smear of clouds away. Medieval Tuscan masons mixed their mortar with goat hair and olive oil. But nobody mentions how it smells like your nana's abandoned knitting basket after 40 years. Your palm skims the parapet, stone ridges braille under your fingertips. Ivy crackles like old parchment, then bites back with thorns. They say night guards memorized these walls by callus, each scrape mapping the route better than any torch. A bat zips past, your gasp echoes twice, thrice, competing with its sonar clicks. The dark feels solid now, a blindfold soaked in ink. You shuffle sideways, boot scuffing a loose cobble. 9th century sentries supposedly navigated gaps by kicking pebbles ahead. Living metronomes, counting 5 steps per clatter. Your pebble plummets into nothing. No click, no skitter. You freeze. 19th century tourist journals swore they heard ghostly marbles rolling below these walls, right before realizing their own pockets held nothing but lint. Rain. No, that's your own sweat cooling on temple skin. The wind shifts, rotting oranges from some unseen grove. Or maybe the phantom stench of a Renaissance perfume workshop. Cosimo de' Medici once ordered 40 barrels of jasmine oil, burned during a siege smoke screen or olfactory warfare. Historians still debate whether his enemies surrendered from arrows or migraines. Your pinky brushes something warm. You jerk back, then laugh at yourself. Sun-warmed stone, even at midnight. Impossible. But there it is, a patch of wall feverish to the touch. Some claim Roman hypocaust systems still snake beneath Tuscany leftovers from invisible bathhouses. You press closer. Imagine sweat-drenched senators debating aqueduct budgets in steam. Fabric whispers. Your cloak. No, too crisp. A moth the size of a playing card flutters against your neck. You swat and taste wing dust. Guards in the 1600s pinned moth wings to their jackets, talismans against cannon fire. Rookie mistake. Should have aimed lower, soldier. The tower gargoyle's beak clips your shoulder. Cold marble lips at your ear. 18th century architects gave it a baker's face. Paunchy cheeks and dough-thick fingers gripping the rainspout. Local legend. claims the sculptor's mistress died mid-sit, leaving her grin immortalized in limestone. You trace its smirk, pollen, grit under your nail. Clouds thin. Fingernail moon squints through. Walls emerge as negative space, a jigsaw of voids. Your heel catches on a ridge. It's just a rosemary bush invading the battlements. Crusaders supposedly planted these for remembrance and to flavor their mutton during existential crises. Crush a sprig, the scent clings, medicinal and defiant. Pebbles skitter below. Your head tilts, hound, drunkard. 6th century Lombard invaders trained badgers to dig tunnels, but your money's on a hedgehog mid-courtship. 3 quick steps, then silence. Moonlight bleeds through again. Orion's sword dangles over the piazza, dull and harmless as a butter knife. Ivy parts under your grip, revealing a handprint fossilized in the mortar. Child-sized or just eroded. 1547 tax records list a stonemason's daughter fined for defacing defensive works with unseemly imprints. You press your palm over hers. Centuries collapse like a house of cards. For half a breath, the wall thrums, a lullaby hummed through limestone teeth. Clouds return thicker now, burial shrouds for the sky. Your toe finds a groove worn into the rampart, the century shuffle path, polished by 900 years of pacing. Archaeologists found similar grooves in Masada, Beijing, everywhere humans guard nothing until it becomes something. Something tugs your sleeve, not wind, not ivy. You pivot, lantern raised, but the wick died hours ago. A chuckle rashes the dark yours, or the walls. Renaissance engineers built optical illusions into fortifications, false arches that sang when mistook for real ones. You hum a bass note, no answering vibration, just the scuff of your soul's grinding time into dust. Dew soaks through your collar. The horizon bruises dawn's first graffiti. Last night's constellations cling to the west, Orion, now just a rumor, a smudge where gods doodled in disappearing ink. Your fingers curl around a warm patch of wall, that stubborn spot where history forgot to cool. Mortar crumbles, powdered centuries cling to your palm like stolen sugar. You exhale. The walls exhale back. Somewhere, a lark coughs awake. Your boothiel grinds rosemary into the stone, scent sharp enough to pierce the lark's half-hearted dawn song. Clanking rises from the road below, not armored feet, not smuggler's gold. A hooded figure shuffles past, shoulders bent under jugs, slung on a yoke. The reek of yeast punches through night's last shred of dignity. Someone's brewing session went biblical. Medieval brewers worked graveyard shifts to avoid daytime taxes. You count 7 clay vessels, each stamped with the telltale alewife's pole. Should have guessed. 16th century bureaucrats measured output by whose doorstep stank before dawn. The man's cloak snags on a briar, revealing a forearm mapped by kettle burns. A jug slips. Sour mash erupts, puddle swallowing moonlight. His curse curdles the air, D-O'Kane, northern dialect. a Brescian brewer fleeing Venice's strict purity laws. You lean, pretending not to notice his frantic mopping with a moldy rag. Some trades need shadows more than sunlight. Something glistens in the spill, not foam. You squint, a dead bat floats belly up. Brewers once used them to test barrel seals. They'd toss one in if it drowned. The cask was airtight. If it lived, well, let's just say your great-granddad's stout had character. This one's wings splay like a tiny brewmaster's coat of arms. He writes the jug, swaddlecloth now oozing. Historians still argue whether Renaissance night brewers hid vats in catacombs to dodge fees, or just liked the company of skeletons. Your nose wrinkles, definitely a catacomb vintage. Shadows claim him again, cloak flapping like a half-fermented thought. Half a mile down the road, a donkey brays. Jugman freezes, then scuttles toward the sound. Clink-clank fades, replaced by the valley's first cicada testing its microphone. You spit rosemary grit, taste betrayal. Monks brewed their strongest ales for Lent, called it liquid penance. Bet all cloaky back, their invented tax, evasion trapel. Fog smudges the brewer's path, swallowing hoofbeats and oath alike. Dawn picks at the horizon's scalp, pink underarm stubble on a new day. You grin, let him go, knowing the real crime here's charging triple for bad-flavored swill. The wall warms under your palm again, mortar breathing steam like fresh bread. Somewhere beyond the mist, a cloaked figure becomes sunrise's problem. Your shift's not over, not quite. The eastern horizon cracks open, a yolk-pink spill, staining night's last stubborn patches of indigo. You blink burnt eyelashes, framing a sky that's all flayed muscle now sunrise as vivisection. Below, rooftops shrug off their cloak of shadows, terracotta tiles emerging like vertebrae from tar-black mist. A shutter squeals. Someone's grandmother wrestles her laundry balcony into submission. Sheets snapping like surrender flags. Medieval Tuscany outlawed night bathing. Dawn became the hour for scrubbing away sins before priests took attendance. Your nose wrinkles. Today's first waft of lye soap vies with leftover brewery stench. Somewhere a rooster botches its alarm call, half crow strangled into a phlegmy gurgle. The wall under your palms loses its moon chill. Stones, exhaling stored warmth through fissures older than your bloodline. You lean, forehead pressing against what the Ottavio family plaque calls the bulwark against Saracen hordes. Never mind that pirates never reached these hills, though they'd make decent neighbors for the tax collector. Sunlight licks the watchtower's crumbling merlins, revealing 3 new cracks since last week. Historians still argue whether these fortifications were built by paranoid dukes or just masons padding their invoices. A lizard skitters into the glare, its tail thrice autotomized and twice as cocky. Centuries of warfare distilled into one reptilian jerk. Your shadow stretches westward, suddenly outsized, then evaporates as the sun crests the ridge. The transformation's instant, heroine to extra in your own epic. blink, and the valley floods with merciless light. Every cobble's chip and pistain documented. Moonlit enigmas crumble, replaced by a tourist's postcard of vineyards and inoffensive ruins. A wagon groans up the switchback, crates labeled ARTICHOKS, in paint brighter than Renaissance pigments. The driver's humming, an off-key rendition of Monteverdi's Lamento della Ninfa. Wouldn't shock you, locals still bury coins where crusaders camped, hoping soil remembers gold. You hawk a rosemary-tinted loogie. Watch it vaporize before hitting olive roots. Two nuns scuttle below, their wimples starched into anti-gravity defiance. They're circling the well, fingers clawing at its rim. Bet there, after the due 13th century herbalists swore first light moisture cured warts. One glances up, catches you staring, crosses herself with enough gusto to dislocate a shoulder. You turn shoulders rigid, pretending to study the suddenly boring as dust northern ridge. Mediterranean dawns don't forgive or forget. They expose, reduce, betray. Warmth pools at your collarbones, sweat breaking ranks despite the chill. Your eyelids stutter, full rebellion by 5 a.m. A shout slices through the piazza, Fiammetta. The bread, a slap dough hitting stone, a widow's black skirts swirling into a chapel's maw daylight smears the valley, rinsing away every spectral possibility. That mystique Henry IV praised in his letters. Gone, replaced by farmers and the scent of yeast. Your vigils end mirrors, its start a revolving door between romance and receipts. One final sweep of the wall walk, toes kicking pebbles that'll become pilgrim souvenirs by noon. Your thumb finds the groove where archers once rested crossbows, deeper than memory, shallower than myth. The stones thrum, not with history, just the septic truck's morning crawl through narrow streets. At the stairs, you hesitate. Dawn's stripped your watch of all grandeur, left it base metal. From here, the town's just geometry, angles and chores and laundry. You descend each step, erasing another layer of night's fragile magic. The key grinds in the watchman's lodge, chronically sticky, just like the 1498 town ledger warned. Behind you, the sun hoists itself over hills, gilding the valley in triumph. The wall remains patient, indifferent, already dreaming of moonrise. The key's screech still vibrates in your teeth when the first yeasty sigh hits, fresh bread blooming like an audible scent. Across the piazza, one yellow square glows, a diorama of forearms dusted white as Carrara marble. A shadow puppeteers dough into submission, slapping it with the casual violence of Renaissance parenting. Medieval bakers faced fines for light loaves, their thumbprints pressed into every loaf as accountability stamps. You imagine this one's ledger, 14 denarii, 30 soldi, and a doodle of the mayor's horse-faced mistress. A shutter bangs open, flour explodes into the street like a martyrdom of moths. Buongiorno, insan, calls a voice from the glow. You wave your arm, suddenly heavy, as we-cold focaccia. Legend claims bakers once carried starter dough under their armpits during winter. Human ovens keeping hope and fermentation alive. The scent intensifies, renegade yeast colonizing your sinuses. A child's face appears at the window, cheeks dusted like powdered sugar on biscotti. They blow a flour bomb your way, giggling, disappears before the cloud settles. You taste centuries in the air, barley, salt, the sweat of apprentices who kneaded by comet light. Historians still argue whether Renaissance bakers recycled beer, yeast for sourdough. The answer floats through the pre-dawn, a tang that could pickle a saint's tongue. You flex stiff fingers, remembering the oven's ghost heat on your palms back when the lodge boasted a hearth instead of mouse nests. The baker emerges, apron ties straining like gondola ropes. He lights a clay pipe, tobacco, and rosemary battling for dominance. You guard walls, he rasps. I guard traditions. His laugh sounds like dough being punched down. 2 loaves materialize in his hands, still steaming, their crusts crackling like Vesuvius mud. He names them Antonio and Silvano, claiming each batch inherits a grandfather's spite or sweetness. You bite into betrayal, molten chestnut, filling sears your lip. Medieval punishment for bread fraud flashes through your mind, bakers, dragged through streets on a hurdle. This guy's ancestors clearly cheated better. Dawn proper arrives, tiptoeing past the Duomo's bell. The baker retreats, his shadow merging with smoke from the oven's greedy mouth. You count loaves cooling on racks, 84, 85, 86. A drop of honey slides down your wrist, golden clock hand, marking stolen time. The window slams shut, smothering the yellow glow. All that remains, singed fingertips and crumbs that'll outlast the wall itself. Somewhere, a widow's goat bleats for breakfast. A rooster finally nails its crescendo. Yeast surrenders to digestion. Your shift ended hours ago, yet here you linger, caught between vigilance and the scent of what rises unconditionally. A breeze riffles through reject loaves, stacked like failed epics. You pocket a heel of bread, its crust sharp enough to slice through nostalgia. The oven's last ember winks out one fired clay eye closing in your direction. You bow absurdly to nothing and no one. The piazza yawns awake, merchants, lovers, pickpockets, all blissfully unaware they're bit players in your crumbling nocturnal opera. Your boot heel grinds flour into cobblestones, ghost kneading tomorrow's history into the grooves. Somewhere, a baker's grandson inherits the wooden peel, legends, debts, and the eternal question, who guards the guardians of bread? Fog slithers up the valley, 100 phantom citadels rising from the damp. You lean into crumbling merlins. Your breath becomes the only flag flying over this dissolving kingdom. The abbey bell should have told prime hours ago. Some say medieval watchmen lit bonfires in this murk to mimic daylight. All you've got is a sputtering torch, its smoke braiding with mist until both surrender to gray. Branches creak below cypresses, pretending to be siege engines. Renaissance engineers once designed pivoting bridges that collapsed under fog's weight. Or maybe that's just the vino talking. Your boot slips on dew-slick stone. The drop yawns 9 meters. 20. The mist eats measurements whole. A lone nightingale trills, directionless, as if the bird itself forgot where sound begins. The wall beneath your palms sweats centuries of mortar grief. 12 generations patrolled these stones, 93 names chiseled in the gatehouse ledger before the ink ran out. Archaeologists found chicken bones wedged between bricks last summer. Makeshift spirit traps from when plague made men superstitious. You kick a pebble over the edge, counting seconds, until it becomes faith instead of physics. Something hisses where the postern gate stood, or didn't. Historians still argue whether that crack in the masonry marks a forgotten Sally Port or a bricklayer's hangover. You press your ear to cold limestone, hear nothing, then everything, the scuff of a rat, the pop of cooling mortar, your own pulse narrating this vigil. Damp wool chafes your neck, cloth of gold for the watchman's psalm, dawns a rumor here. A thin smear of pearl gauze above the soup. You blink, and the valley's rewritten itself. Olive groves become moats. Vineyard trellises mutate into portcullis teeth. A cowbell clonks Beatrice's heifer, probably, though in this fog, it tolls like a leper's warning. Your torch dies mid-sputter, wick drowning in its own wax tears. Medieval ordinances required citizens to whitewash their houses during peaceupers. Helps lost souls find hearths. These stones stay stubbornly gray, a canvas for every ghost's revisionist history. You scrape lichen off a parapet. Green dust coats your nails like tarnished rings. Wind rifles through your notebook. Pages stick together. Ink bleeding into Rorschach sentinels. That baker's son swore he saw spectral nights here last Martinmas. Mist condensing into plumes and poleaxes. You sketch the idea, quill snags. Tear becomes a lance-piercing parchment. Laughter bubbles up yours hoarse from disuse, surprising as a falcon in a dovecote. 384 steps to the tower. You've walked them daily since frost gripped the vineyards. Today they feel different, risers tilting like a drunkard stairs. A feral cat yowls. Somewhere its cry stretched thin as tavern wire. Legend claims Boncant de Montefeltro's ghost rides these mists, his death by storm immortalized in Dante's Purgatorio. You half expect his warhorse to materialize, nostrils flaring steam, hooves clinking with conquered armor. Instead, a donkey brays. Reality, ever the jester, deflates grandeur. The beast materializes, laden with firewood, its owner's face wrapped in scarves against the damp. Passing through, you call, irony curdling the words. He grunts, gesture trapped between salute and dismissal. Watchmen used to tax such travelers, a penny per phantom in their carts. Sunrise loses patience, burning through clouds like papyrus. The mist retreats grudgingly, revealing a shepherd's lunch perched on a fallen menhir 2 centuries back. A German painter trapped here by fog frescoed an entire chapel in exchange for sausages. Today's barter: your watch report, 3 pages of damp nothingness, tradable for coffee and plausible deniability. The last tendrils of fog cling to your boots, desperate as unrequited lovers. You stamp, they dissipate, taking invented kingdoms with them. The valley yawns, sheep bleat, cypresses shrug off their armor. Your shift ended technically when the baker slid his loaves into ovens. Yet here you linger, sentinel to a border that exists only when mist and memory conspire. The cat materializes, a one-eared silhouette etched against terracotta roof tiles. His remaining ear twitches, disdain broadcasting louder than the village cobbler's bell. You freeze, mid-step boot, hovering over a crack that swallowed 3 centuries of patrols. Rats scatter beneath the collapsed eave, their panic mismatched with the Tom's glacial blink. Medieval Tuscany paid bounties for rat skulls, 2 soldi per dozen. Though I skin the tales first, you've read the ledgers. 16th century notaries cursing ink blots between entries for felonious damnum fines. This specimen's gaze suggests he'd sue for slander lineage tracing back to Mousers who prowled Medici grain stores. A shutter creaks upwind, the cat's pupils contract, black moons eclipsing amber. His focus drills past your shoulder, where wildfire scars pockmark the guard tower. Experts think 14th century archers stored lit torches there during flood season convenient, until a drunk garrison learned Newton's laws early. The Tom sneezes, verdict delivered, rat court adjourned. You crouch slow as continents shifting, palms upturned in universal surrender. His tail flicks, dismissive, the same motion crusaders, wives allegedly used to shoo overeager minstrels. Dust motes swirl where a rat's tail vanished. Ancestors probably fled this cat's great-great-grandsire's claws. Some claim Renaissance nobles bred cats to match their heraldry. A Chibeline cat for every Guelph dog. Wind riffles his battle-torn coat, revealing healed gashes and what might be a flea collar. Tinier bell, no clapper, wise choice for a nocturnal assassin. Historians still argue whether Tuscan felines were revered mousers or pestilence proxies. The answer's written in this Tom's smirk. You name him Bonifacio, I, between breaths. He yawns, exposing teeth that of outlasted papal dynasties. A tile shifts, his claws extend, masonry nails honed on cathedral gargoyles. You recall a fresco in San Gimignano, Saint Julian holding a cat whose eyes followed sinners. This one stare could fossilize bread dough. Too bad the baker's daughter loves strays. Rumor says she cured a tabby's mange with grappa. The town pharmacist still grumbles about lost business. The rat pack's exit route glistens, an oily trail through pigeon droppings. Bonifacio rises, stretch exposing belly fur patched like a dropped quilt. His leap spans eras, claws clicking on stonework that defeated Visconti invaders. You count 5 heartbeats before he's airborne, 3 more, until the gutter groans under veteran weight. Distant church bells falter, off rhythm, novice bell ringers practicing nocturnes. The cat freezes a grudge etched in twitching whiskers. Legend claims Pope Pius II's favorite mouser disrupted the Council of Mantua, tripped a cardinal mid-declaration. Bonifacio's ear pivots, tracking rodents or ghosts. Same difference here. When you blink, he's gone, rooftops offering better gossip than your human stench. The rats win this round or lose, depends who's keeping score. Your notebook lies open, charcoal sketch of the tom already smudging. Caption it later, self-portrait with superior life form. The Abbey archivist will chuckle. Once. Sunlight glares off a rooftop crucifix, its gilding stolen by centuries of cats sharpening claws. You pocket a fallen tile shard, clay still warm from feline disdain. Dawn's fully committed now. Vendors hawking Sciaxiata drown out the rats. Requiem. Somewhere Bonifacio licks a paw, already composing ballads about your mediocrity. 3 sparrows alight where the roof sags, avian tourists mocking structural integrity. The cats nowhere, everywhere, a phantom jury condemning your 2-legged fumblings. You check your sleeve, no rats, no ghosts, just lint from yesterday's guardroom cot. The bell tower strikes a proper hour this time, each chime stretching this morning's mysteries thin. Your sleeve snags on a creeping vine, purple-black berries huddle in the mortar's embrace. Belladonna, its name alone tastes dangerous on the tongue. You lean closer, sweat, and crushed rosemary sharpening the air, finger hovering over dewy clusters. Even poison can be pretty. Renaissance ladies dripped this sap in their eyes, pupils dilating into bottomless allure. The fruit gleams like spilled ink, tempting as a lover's promise with thorns. Historians still argue whether Tuscan wall vines were medicine chests or accidental guests, seeds dropped by drunkards or strategic healers. You snap a stem, sap oozes, thick and reluctant. 14th century poison rings hid less venom than this. Tiny vials clasped by hands that toasted friends, then emptied their cups. Wind riffles the leaves, revealing a spray of withered flowers. They rattle, a death's head moth's wings. 16th century midwives swore diluted tinctures eased childbirth, right before patients forgot to breathe. A drop beads on your thumb, sticky, insistent. You wipe it on the parapet stone now marked like a heretic's confession. Behind you, a scrape of iron. The pharmacist's apprentice once tripped here, spilled vial, turning his hair snow white overnight. At least, that's what he claims at taverns. Belladonna doesn't bleach, it obliterates. Your shadow falls across the plant, leaves curling, as if burned. Even midnight shuns its own kind. A berry rolls into a crack joining ghosts of mortar and old blood. Some claim Napoleon's quartermaster harvested these walls for camp medicine. His men hallucinated charging Austrian angels. You count 8 berries remaining, enough to kill a prize-winning ox, or garnish a duke's last supper. The sap won't leave your skin clingy as a Florentine gossip. Dawn highlights its sheen, a guilty fingerprint. You whistle through your teeth, same tune the apothecary hums while measuring wolfsbane. Both know some cures require worse sickness. A lizard darts from the foliage, blue streak fleeing your hesitation. 13 hearts, that's what lizards have, all racing now. You flick the torn stem into the valley, one more relic for future fools to pocket. Below, the first cartwheels crunch gravel towards market their owners, blissfully unaware of the death clinging to your thumb. A shrill note slices the dark, a child's voice climbing scales like ivy up the battlement. Lupa bianca, luna di Gaiaxio, white wolf. Ice moon, Tuscan kids still chant this at wells before Epiphany, their breath fogging coins tossed for luck. You freeze, elbow grating against stone. The same spot Duke Alessandro's guards once spilled a minstrel's blood for singing Republican hymns. The melody frays, words dissolving into hums. Historians still argue whether these ballads were lullabies or rebel codes, directions to hidden grain stores when nobles hoarded wheat. A pale scarf flutters below, neon pink, clashing with 14th century cobbles. Modern polyester never belonged in this night. Yet there it lies, smeared with diesel exhaust and bubblegum. 3 rapid verses skitter past, mentioning teeth, salt, a door sealed with fingernail clippings. You've heard tavern drunks slur about lupamani, werewolves cured by stuffing belladonna in their shoes. The girl's shadow stretches up the wall 10 feet tall and flickering. You blink, she's just a kid in light-up sneakers, hair braided so tight it scowls. Her final note hangs, a wobbling soap bubble. Around you stone absorbs the sound, the same way it drank crusaders' oaths and plague victims' last prayers. An owl hoots twice, your cue to breathe again. When you peer down, only the scarf remains, pinned under a dented Peroni bottle. The wolf in her song, probably a German shepherd mix, howling at scooters in the next valley. Wind lifts the fabric, dancing it toward the baker's first smoke. You touch your belladonna-stained thumb to the parapet. Latin graffiti, their warns cave, canticum, beware the song. Maybe the kid's a ghost, maybe she's Fabrizio's daughter, practicing for choir. Her sneakers' LEDs fade as dawn rubs sleep from the horizon, until even the scarf dissolves into grease and daylight. Wind plucks at your collar, cold fingers seeking warmth or secrets. A flutter catches your eye-yellowed parchment, spiraling down like autumn's last leaf. You snatch it midair. Dew has smudged the ink into Rorschach ghosts. Dearest M, it begins, then collapses into watercolor sorrow. 16th century soldiers used ox gall for waterproof ink right before the siege of Siena. This scribble bleeds violet, likely crushed blackberries and desperation. You trace the grooves where Quill dug too deep. Tell and Gilo, his boots wait under the olive stump. The rest dissolves, casualties of rain and indecision. A drunk pigeon coos from the guard tower. Funny Renaissance mail carriers, sometimes tattooed roots on their scalps, maps hidden under bad wigs. This letter never met a courier, just gravity and your palms. Historians still argue whether unsent battlefield notes were accidents or intentional breadcrumbs for ghosts to follow home. 3 words survive intact: forgive me, repeated like a heartbeat. The paper smells of lye soap and gunpowder. Someone scrubbed their conscience clean before sealing this. Your thumb finds wax remnants, no noble crest, just thumbprint swirls. You have expected to disintegrate, but it clings, a confession determined to outlast its author. Moonlight betrays a second layer, faint scratches in the margins. Carathis de mercenari, Carthaginian mercenary dialect. Experts think 3 Sienese commanders hired North African crossbowmen during the siege. The words dissolve as you tilt the page's secrets, evaporating after 5 centuries of bad filing. Down in the piazza, a Vespa backfires. You jump, the parchment escapes your grip, floating toward a baker's chimney. Lunging, you catch it by the corner. For a heartbeat, the thermal updraft cradles both of you conspirators, frozen mid-flight. The church bell tolls, 5:30. Linen fibers cling to your damp palm, rags beaten into paper by monks, or a soldier's last shirt foraged in haste. You fold the sheet, small as a locket, tuck it behind your belt. Let archivists debate its authenticity tomorrow. Tonight, it smells like a man who missed his son's first steps. Dawn leaks through the valley, gilding your sleeve where the paper rests. Somewhere, ink molecules kiss fabric. A conversation 500 years postponed. Dearest M begins again, unheard, carried now by a stranger's pulse instead of pigeons. You adjust your collar against the wind, its curiosity satisfied, its fingers empty at last. Orion's belt sags, 3 silver coins slipped through night's pocket. You squint, half-remembered astronomy from a planetarium show, gone grainy. Polaris dims like a bulb, unscrewed by dawn's fat fingers, true north dissolving into coffee-stained clouds. Your neck prickles, not from cold. 16th century star charts called this the hour of unraveling, when constellations unstitched themselves from the sky. Tycho Brahe once charted a comet here, Quill scratching frantic circles as it outran his theories. A bat clips your ear, leathern flap of wings too close. You duck, chuckling awkwardly at your own jumpiness. Funny medieval astronomers named nebulae after laundry accidents. Cobbler's apron, monk's stain, as if the heavens were a tavern floor. Venus blinks out first, the morning star quitting early. Your breath fogs the air, each puff erasing another patch of stars. Cracked mortar bites your palm as you lean, the walls chill, seeping through wool and regret. A shooting star gasps, then dies mid-arc. Historians still argue whether Renaissance star maps account for atmospheric dust, centuries of campfires, and cannon smoke fogging the data. You count the remaining pinpricks. 17, 16. The Big Dipper's handle drips into nothing. Liquid silver poured into daybreak. 3 nights ago, you traced its shape for a giggling tourist. Now it's just absence. Your thumb finds a groove in the stone, a mason's chisel mark from 1592. Funny, same year, they hung the church bell that just went silent. Coincidence or calculus? A donkey brays in the valley, fog muffling its complaint. You name the vanished constellations aloud, Corvus, Lyra, syllables swallowed by daylight. Funny how entire mythologies get downsized to trivia night footnotes. Warmth bleeds into the eastern horizon, gold murdering violet. You fumble for the soldier's letter, but its secrets feel smaller now, outshined by the solar glut heading your way. Footsteps approach, gravel crunching like bone meal. The baker nods as he passes, flour under his nails, dawn's first collaborator. You don't mention the stars. He wouldn't care, and you're already forgetting their arrangement anyway. The last star winks out, a perforation sealed. You exhale, dawn sticky in your throat. Somewhere, Tycho's comet still burns across old parchment, untroubled by extinction or the smell of rising bread. A coin spins in your palm, earlier's bread, money gone warm with indecision. The well crouches ahead, its stones glazed by moonlight and too many clumsy wishes. Funny, they used to lower verdicts into that throat, medieval Florentines tossing signed confessions like holy receipts. Owl, air, the voice slithers from the well's rim, a man folded over it like laundry forgotten mid-wash. His elbow slips, grazes moss older than Italy's unification. Historians still argue whether Nightwatchmen patrolled against invaders or drunks. 16th century ordinances banned wine sales after 7 bells. But Tuscany's grapes have always been overachievers. You flick the coin, it arcs silver. His hand snaps up quicker than a papal pardon. Grazie, Guardiano, the words slur, honey thick and vinegar sharp. But they're hungry tonight. You should have brought more. Your boot scuffs a loose cobble. The sound echoes wetly below. Funny, Venetian engineers once mapped these cisterns, hidden rivers that still hum under piazzas. His breath hits you, fermented grapes, and a sharper tang, wormhood. Nightshade, hush now. He presses a finger to lips cracked like old fresco plaster. Low senti, the ones who built this wall, still checking the mortar. A pause, then giggles bubble up, a sound that get you fired from a comedy club. You lean just enough to spot the well's waterless pit. Bricks spiral downward, wedged with centuries of debris. Funny, restorers found a 15th century dice set last year, loaded with lead. Cheaters never prosper, except in the afterlife. The drunkard's grip finds your wrist, sweat slick, and stronger than Renaissance plumbing. You think you guard stone. Ha, stones guard us cagus, gusts, his eyes glint, pupils swallowing the moon hole. Somewhere, a shutter slams. You jerk back, coin long gone to the dark. In the sacks, he's wheezing now, clutching his ribs. After the siege, they stuffed him in grain bags, dumped him down. Wind riffles your collar, suddenly colder. Funny local kids dare each other to lick the well's north stones, tastes metallic. But that's just rust and peer pressure. Right. His chin dips, nestles into the well's curve, non dire niente ai pixioni, mumbles dissolving into snores. You rise, dusting off knees kissed by pigeon droppings and time. 3 steps away his voice creaks like a gallows rope. You'll meet M when your shift ends. The laugh follows you down via del Purgatorio, a hook in the meat of your shoulders. 5 a.m. light pales the bakery's chimney, your spine still humming from his vinegar prophecy. That's the trouble with Tuscan wells, too deep for truth, too shallow for comfort. The basilica's shadow gnaws the last crumbs of dark as you turn onto Via dell'Oblio. 1 third-floor window glows, a candle flame flickering behind warped glass. Confession or insomnia. Funny, medieval priests kept sinners' hours during plagues, dawn confessions for those afraid to die unshriven. These days, just insomniacs and the Wi-Fi deprived. You pause under a leering gargoyle, its rain spout tongue aimed at your left shoulder. The candle gutters, casting a silhouette that could be praying, or face down in his minestrone. Funny locals whisper about the feast of the whispering saints. 16th century villagers confessing sins to statues when clergy died out. Better listeners, they say, and cheaper. A muffled voice drifts down Latin, or the exhausted mumbles of a man who's read too much Aquinas. Your boot scuffs a loose cobble. The sound ricochets off confessionals like a drunk Hail Mary. Historians still argue whether night confessions peaked during the Black Death or just after Tuscany's wine harvests. The flame dims, someone's moving behind the glass. You imagine ink-stained fingers, a ledger of sins written in expired canned goods. Funny, priests here once disguised death tallies as grocery lists. 12 sausages meant 12 souls. Olive oil stood for plague swellings. Mercy's always been a cipher. Wind funnels through the nave's cracked door, carrying incense. And a whiff of the baker's yeast from 3 streets over. The smell turns sacred and profane, a doughy communion. You lean against a limestone apostle, missing his nose, art restoration's version of a botched rhinoplasty. Silence, then a rasp of wood on stone. The candle vanishes, snuffed or shielded. Your neck prickles. That's the trouble with holy shadows. They take confession without absolution. Funny Renaissance painters added hidden rats in chapel corners. Memento mori for the observant, or just bored apprentices flexing. Damp seeps through your cloak. The church exhales centuries of mildew and doubt. Somewhere above a floorboard whines. Men's voices tangle, one weary, one wire-tight. You catch non-igrav culpa sua, before a shutter slams. Funny, every Tuscan town needs three things: a well, a secret, and a priest who forgets to whisper. The candle reappears weaker now. You count heartbeats until a silhouette returns head bowed like a man auditing hell's ledger. When the flame dies, the dark feels thicker, a velvet chokehold. Funny, they used to bury doubters in unblessed ground. Now we just binge Netflix until existential dread fades. 3 a.m. Wind gusts. A loose shutter clatters like dice across a vestry floor. You pocket a fallen olive branch, half reliquary, half kindling. The candle stays dead. Funny, faith's always been a flicker, too frail for daylight, too stubborn to fully die. First birds test the air, notes tentative, like altar boys rehearsing hymns. The sky pales behind Montecuculli, dawn scratching its 7-year itch. You step back, heel-crushing dried rosemary left by some hopeful soul. The scent clings, prayer made tangible. Last glance upward the windows, just a hollow now. Church swallows dart through its arch, scribbling invisible psalms with their wings. Funny, no one mentions how often holy places double as pigeon hostels. You walk away, the taste of incense and sourdough lingering, like an unconsecrated blessing. Footsteps crunch above as you approach Ponte Vecchio's shadow, or are they below? The Arno chuckles, a wet rasp turning stones to syllables. Moonlight paints the arch silver Roman engineers mixed volcanic sand into its mortar. A trick they stole from Vesuvius's victims. You pause mid-span, leather soles slapping wood somewhere behind you. Turning, nothing but wind combing through reeds. Funny, locals swear the bridge hums at midnight, but that's just the river gnawing rocks, or the ghost of Gianni Il Pazzo, who tried to tax fish crossing downstream. One boot nudges the railing, lichen flakes off like green dandruff. Historians still argue whether consuls built this for legions, or wine merchants bribing a tax inspector. Either way, empires fall, rivers keep bookkeeping. A louder splash. You spin, cloak whipping like a snapped banner. Ripples glitter 30 feet downstream. No telltale plop of a skipping stone. Your lantern reveals only moonlit foam and the ghostly outline of a trout smirking. Leaning over, the current's voice changes. Not water whispers layered under the gurgle. Latin, Old Tuscan. The dialect shifts when you hold your breath. Another trick of echo and insomnia. Funny, Renaissance engineers wanted to hang shops off the bridge, till someone asked where the piss pots would drain. Now, it's just our existential dread, and the occasional tourist dropping a cursed coin. 3 a.m. Fog rises. The river becomes steam ironing a rumpled sky. You kick a pebble. It takes 9 heartbeats to hit liquid. Time stretches thin here, dissolved like honey in tea. Another footfall closer. Your blades out, a reflex. Metal glints on the railing. A modern padlock engraved with G+L forever. You snort, even love notes here end up underwater, or picked apart by board carp. Wind throws your shadow against the bridge, it warps, bulging like a battering ram. Funny, medieval guards reported seeing phantom armies here. Turns out fog plus bad wine equals mass hallucinations. Still, better than Yelp reviews. The steps resume, boots this time methodical. You follow, fingers trailing moss-slick stones. Halfway, a rusted chain sways where lanterns once hung. 12 nicks in the wood, a jailer's tally. Or a baker counting loaves lost to rain. Silence, then hooves, the bridge rocks. But that's just your pulse thrashing. A fish leaps, its scales flash papal gold. You almost miss the carving underfoot, initials inside a heart, dated 1492. Funny, they found a skeleton here during repairs, clutching a sack of Venetian glass beads. Pawn shop ransom, or a salesman who picked the wrong bridge. Archaeologists shrugged and ordered more espresso. The footsteps stop. You turn facing empty air, and your own breath hanging like a departure board. Dawn's first gull cries overhead, the sound so sharp it slices the mist. Water licks the pilings, ancient and aloof. Whatever walked here's gone, retreated into myth or mud. You pocket the padlock. Its keyhole will make a decent whistle someday. Funny, bridges outlive their builders, but never their secrets. Light bleeds eastward, exposing algae on the stones. Those G+L initials glow, fresh as a wound. You trace the letters, wondering if they'll last half as long as the bridge's unanswered echoes. The Arno laughs again, louder now. You laugh back, dry and brief, before retreating to solid ground. Some promises aren't meant to be kept, just worn down smooth as pebbles, patient as water. Your boots find cobbles again, solid earth after hours of bridge whispers. Stone houses hunch shoulder to shoulder, their shutters clamped shut like disapproving mouths. Except one. Third floor, a window gapes, no candle, just a silhouette framed by peeling ochre plaster. You freeze mid-step, crusty bread lodged in your throat. 6 nights ago, they buried her husband. The whole town knows. Gossip travels faster than mold here. Yet she stands watch, black shroud, blending with the night, her face, a smudge of moon-pale resignation. Wind shoves you toward the piazza. You lean back. Her head tilts, a marionette jerked by invisible strings. The gesture says stay or flee. Interpretation depends on how much grappa you've stolen from the tavern. Funny, Renaissance Tuscans outlawed nighttime shutters to prevent adultery. Now everyone just screws in vineyards. Progress. Her defiance feels heavier, a widow's loophole in the municipal code. 3 floors down, the apothecary's sign creaks. Night jasmine crawls the wall, its sweetness clashing with her window's vinegar tang. Pickling grief or preserving rage. Historians still argue whether these houses used shutters for privacy or to hide siege provisions from Medici taxmen. A shutter slams nearby, your heart bolts like a spooked horse. She doesn't flinch. Her stillness isn't human, it's architecture. Those iron bars, installed last spring after the chimney collapse, now finger the hem of her dress. You count breaths. 17, 18, she finally blinks. The sound echoes, a leather-bound book snapping shut. Rumor claims she's smuggling Greek fire in her soup pot. Truth is sadder. She just forgot how to sleep without his snoring. Funny, builders hid mummified cats in these walls. Superstition says they scare off plague. You wonder if she knows, or envies their eternal naps. Damp seeps through your cloak. Dawns a rumor in the east, but her vigil outlasts stars. 6 nights, 37 hours of staring, and not one neighbor's brought her wine. You're tempted to shout he's not coming back, lady, but your own voice feels too loud for this thin hour. A goat bleats, its chains clank in the alley. She twitches, a ripple in dark fabric. For a heartbeat, you swear she unspools, smoke tendrils reaching for the bed where he last coughed blood into her hands. Funny Tuscan widows once wore their wedding dresses inside out during mourning. Practical, until pearl buttons got stuck in the well pulley. Her hand rises, palm pressed to the glassless pane, grease streaks from 1,000 suppers wiped on her apron. You mirror the gesture, cold stone biting your fingertips. Solidarity or mockery, the lines as blurred as her reflection. Cock crows shred the silence, distant but insistent. She steps back, her outline crumbling into the room's hungry dark. The window remains open, a scream frozen mid-breath. You'll pass this spot tomorrow, find fresh bread on the sill, and pretend not to taste sage in the crust. Dew soaks your knees. When did you kneel? The street's still empty, just a lone cat licking last week's fish bones. You rise, dust off regret, and leave her to outwait the sun. Some watches don't end. They just get inherited, like bad wallpaper or unpaid debts. Her shadow lingers behind your eyelids long after you turn the corner, patient as mortar, sharp as the knife she'll use to slice tomorrow's bread. Moonlight bleeds through the cypress grove, needles etching thin scars across your face. The trees huddle close, their trunks twisted like old rope. You swear they inch nearer when your back's turned, but that might be the grappa fumes wearing off. Gravel crunches underfoot, each step loud as bone snapping. 16th century Tuscans passed laws protecting these groves. Warship masts demanded straight timber. These cypresses, all curves, rebels spared by smug carpenters who preferred beauty over utility. Resin sticks to your palms. You lean against bark, furrowed like an old man's neck. The scent hits honey and funeral incense, fitting peasants once buried coins at these roots, bribes to tree spirits. Records show 3 florins and a button lost here in 1598. Greedier oaks wood-pocketed them. Wind rasps through branches, an accordion wheezing its last tune. You count 7 trunks before the pattern repeats. A bark knot stares back with owl eyes. Cheeky bastards. Local lore claims they walked here from Sardinia, dragging their roots through salt water. A twig cracks behind you, shoulder blades prickling before your mind catches up. Historians still argue whether these groves hosted pagan rites or just really enthusiastic picnics. You side with the drunks who swear they've heard flutes in the wind, and the sober ones who have seen axes buried blade up at dawn. Resin drips on your collar, cool as a widow's tears. 3 steps left, your heel grinds something into the dirt. A rusted nail or a tooth, best not to check. Builders used to hammer iron into living trunks. Angry arborists called it tree torture. The cypresses remember, their groans sync with your heartbeat. Moonlight shifts. Shadows knit themselves into archways. Was that pillar there before? Your lamp gutters, flame shrinking from a chill older than the Medici. Funny, farmers once anointed these trees with olive oil, whispered confessions into their splits. You've got a stale bread crust, but repentance crumbs feel insufficient. Leaves hiss above, a sound like parchment scrolls unfurling. You freeze, waiting for the lecture. The grove tolerates fools, but not repeat offenders. Right foot back, left foot, the cypresses exhale. Their branches settle, a truce sealed in creaks. Dew soaks through your boots, always the feet first. Dawn's still a grudge in the east, but the trees prefer their secrets wrapped in dark. You swallow a laugh. This pact doesn't need your signature. Just retreat and let the cypresses keep pretending they never learned to walk. A cracked note punctures the dark, a lark's first attempt at dawn. Your shoulders tense, muscles coiled through 13 hours of silence. The bird tries again, 3 ascending pitches, wobbling like a drunkard's ladder. 5th century nightingales had better range, but you root for this scratty underdog. Dew soaks your tongue as you tilt your head, tracing the sound to a single cypress. Medieval Tuscans strung horsehair snares in these branches, songbirds sold to nobles for summer gardens. This survivor's ancestors dodged twine traps, leaving descendants cheeky enough to sing sharp. A second lark answers, its trill butter-smooth and twice as smug. Their duet carves tunnels through the fog. You grin, recognizing the opening bars of a feud older than the Leaning Tower. Experts think Pisan monks trained larks to mimic Gregorian chants, until the bishop banned blasphemous chirps during Mass. Stars dissolve like sugar in tea, the horizon blushing raw. Your boot nudges a lump in the grass, a rusted birdcage half-eaten by rust. Tiny bones glint inside ribs curved like ivory combs. Historians still argue whether Renaissance Florentines kept larks as pampered house pets, or just enjoyed them roasted with thyme. The first bird falters, its rival seizes the gap. Their song swells, 17 staccato notes fired like warning shots. You press against cold stone, marveling at lungs no bigger than your thumbnail. 17th century castle guards traded lark dialects like gossip, each tower's birdsong signaling friend or foe. Wind lifts the mist, revealing rooftops smeared with peach light. The larks fall silent, air thick with possibility. Then a third voice erupts from the belfry, all trills and teenage bravado. Your laugh startles a hare in the brush, its thumping getaway lost beneath the crescendo. Bells clang in the valley, farmers herding cows, blacksmiths stoking forges. The larks escalate, jamming citrus bright runs over the clatter. You hum along until the abbey's bell drowns you out. Some things never change. 14th century choir boys griped about the same interruptions in their psalters. Sunlight licks the western wall. Your shadow stretches thin as parchment. The birds hop branches, feathers puffed in victory. One stares you down, beak parted mid-chirp. You mock salute with your empty flask. They've earned their encore. Night's fingers slip from the valley, one knuckle at a time. You spit cherry pit from the grappa, let it arc into the barley field. The larks wing after it, because even rebels need petty distractions. Dawn doesn't conquer, it just outlasts. And you've become the thing witnessed, not the watcher, as the world stirs itself raw and new. Your palm leaves the stones warmer than they were skin, imprinted with 1,000 winters of frost-heaved grit. Sunrise licks the valley's cheeks, gilding olive groves into fields of spear tips. 14th century sentries supposedly carved their initials here with rusted daggers. You settle for tracing the weather-softened LP with a calloused thumb. Below, 3 farmers kick through late harvest vines, their donkeys' bell clonking like a broken clock. Harvest ended weeks ago. But desperation makes archaeologists of us, all sifting dirt for what the proud refused to gather. A butcher's cart rattles across the bridge, its iron-rimmed wheels singing the same squeal Venetian merchants once complained about in tax ledgers. Your cloak flaps, linen snapping like those papal banners Swiss mercenaries torched during the Pazzi conspiracy. Historians still argue whether the famous pink mortar in Tuscan walls comes from crushed terracotta, or a blood wine mix drunk masons swore strengthened the bricks. You snap a sprig of oregano growing between stones, its aroma a time machine to siege banquets where this herb hid the taste of spoiled mutton. The eastern gate creaks, hinges groaning, the G-sharp monks once used to signal outbreaks of plague. You spit a cherry pit into the moat, now a cabbage-choked ditch, and miss the water by a handspan. Renaissance Lotharios supposedly wooed lovers by skipping stones here, each ripple counting down minutes until chaperones fell asleep. A fish breaks the surface, gulping air with the resigned gasp of a scholar reading their 14th rejection letter. Your shadow stretches, dissolves, reforms as a smudge on the cobbles. You count 97 steps to the sweet, discreet meeting spot for medieval mistresses and their minstrels. Halfway there, your boot grinds a pinecone into sap-smeared shrapnel, cathartic, if pointlessly destructive, like the time Florentines burned their own docks to spite Pisa. Dawn's glare sharpens, exposing every crack in the fortress's facade. 18th century restorations, whether worse than the original stone, a lesson in vanity no one heeds. The baker's wife shakes a rug from her 3rd-story window. Wool blooming into a dust cloud comet. You swipe soot from your eyelashes. It's always the bystanders who pay for other people's cleanliness. That Romanesque tower across the valley, built 3 degrees off true, because the architect's pregnant wife craved apricots mid-measurement. It stood 8 centuries, proving crooked foundations outlast perfect plans. Bells hammer the air. 7 strokes for a saint who died negotiating trade routes. Your replacements arrive yawning students with thermoses of espresso. They nod. You linger the torch-passing awkwardness of a relay race where no one wants the baton. 4 scraggly goats clatter down via Falungo, heading to pastures their ancestors grazed before banknotes existed. 1 choose your cloak's fringe, existential revenge for last night's herb picking. You surrender the garment with a bow, because absurdity deserves ceremony. The valley exhales wood smoke, rosemary, and the tang of a copper smelter even the tourist board can't hide. 16th century guards dunked their heads in those vats to cure headaches, suffering through fumes so thick they hallucinated angels in the steam. Your own head throbs, the sweet price of nights spent absorbing centuries through your souls. The path down crumbles, each step a negotiation with gravity. You pass the widow's house, her shutters sealed tight against the light. 5 generations back, her ancestor supposedly smuggled salt in his beard during a papal embargo. Now the family trades in sunscreen and postcards. Progress as a series of smaller surrenders. By the footbridge, you scoop water over your neck, disrupting a mosquito's brunch. Goldfish dart under the algae living coins in a fountain no one throws wishes into anymore. A plaque commemorates the spot where a Baroque duelist bled out over a disputed ricotta recipe. Locals say his ghost hoards saffron threads, hated in life, obsessive in death, eternally irrelevant. Midges swarm in a shaft of light, dizzy constellations, reminding you that all complexity looks like chaos from afar. The brook mutters under the bridge, same as when it carried away Bronze Age trash, plague corpses, and last night's wine bottles. You chuck a pebble at a cypress, miss, and now the tree owns your apology forever. Your rented room smells of mildew, and the previous tenant's tobacco, aromas that'll cling until winter scrubs the walls raw. A cat sprawls on the bed, claiming the depression your body heat left 6 hours ago. You toss your flask onto the dresser, its dented silhouette echoing the tower's crooked profile across the valley. Sleep comes not as a mercy, but as a negotiator dissolving yesterday's contracts. When you wake, the wall will still be there, keeping nothing out, holding nothing in, patient as only stone can be. And you'll be buying espresso from the baker's cousin, tracing the curve of a cup that'll outlive every lie you've ever whispered to dawn. Your palm lingers on sun-warmed stones, their grit softened by centuries of dawns. The valley blushes gold, olive leaves trembling like coins in a miser's fist. Below, 3 figures bend in the vineyard, fingers combing soil for grapes abandoned by haste. Their donkey's bell tolls a drowsy rhythm, no urgency left in this hushed world. A breeze snags your cloak, linen cracking like old parchment. You press a sprig of oregano to your nose, its spice masking memories of rancid feasts. The eastern gate sighs, a rusty protest echoing plague warnings no one recalls. A cherry pit misses the ditch, joining stones skipped by lovers who now lie under them. Your shadow melts into cobblestones, a stain washed pale by climbing light. 97 steps to the well, where minstrels once crooned through barred windows. You crush a pinecone underfoot, sap sticking like regret. Dawn gnaws at the fortress's cracks, exposing patches where pride outpaced craftsmanship. A rug shakes free of dust. Upstairs, the cloud swallowing sparrows mid-flight. You blink soot from your lashes, proof of others' tidiness. Across the valley, that slanted tower still mocks perfection, its belly full of unborn apricots. Bells strike 7 iron tongues, decreeing a saint's forgotten bargain. Yawning students trudge up the path, clutching bitter coffee like shields. You trade nods, your cloak snagged by a goat's spiteful teeth. Release it with a flourish. Absurd needs, honoring absurd. Wood smoke and rosemary rise, sharp counterpoints to the smelter's metallic whisper. Your skull hums, echoes of guards who breathed poison for visions. The descent begins, each step a truce with the slope. The widow's shutters stay closed, salt smuggler's kin, now peddling sunblock. At the bridge, you cup water over your neck, erasing a mosquito's ambition. Goldfish flicker discarded wishes with fins. Your room waits, mildew and tobacco clinging to plaster. A cat sprawls in your warmth-molded hollow. The flask clunks, dented companion to the valley's leaning tower. Sleep arrives, not kindness, but a diplomat erasing yesterday's ledgers. Tomorrow, the wall remains keeper of nothing, witness to all. You'll sip espresso from a cup that endures as stone, outlasts the lies we etch into dawn. Whisper fading, holds nothing in.